Of course, I don't have my micro or my headphones. Let me get those in. I thought I was ready to start. All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Raging Atheist. I'm your boy Nakasuchi. Today, I'm going to be talking with Richard Madsen. I'm going to be pulling him in just a second. But real quick, wanted to go through my announcements, and then I'll send him the link. As you guys all know by now, drinking contest is a week from today. And I'm going to have Will in, hope maybe sometime tomorrow, to talk about the drinking contest and talk about the guy that we're going to be trying to do a little charity for. What's up, Lisa for Truth? Pure Ostension. I'm sure we're going to get some more people in it. And I'm not going to be having an open hangout tonight. I've decided that me and my daughter are going to watch Empire Strikes Back. We watched the original Star Wars a couple weeks ago. And we watched Aquaman earlier today. And I just enjoying spending some time with her. And going to continue to do that instead of have another 6-hour hangout like I did last night. I only got about 4 hours of sleep. Feeling pretty good, not too hungover, considering all the beer I drank. Did get hammered again on stream last night. Fun times. But feeling pretty good, not too hungover. I just didn't get enough sleep. I need to try to get some sleep tonight. So that's the plan. I got 2 hangouts. I got one with Richard Madsen, which I'm going to pull him in. And then the messenger reveals is at 6 o'clock. Richard has requested to be a part of that one. I have no problem with it. So as long as messenger doesn't have a problem with it, it'll be messenger and Richard Madsen and me. So let's get over to my emails. We're going to send Richard the link. All right. And we'll get him in here and get started. So, yeah, that's pretty much the announcements. Going to be changing up my edited content a little bit. So let me know what you guys think and once I start heading in that direction. But I'm looking forward to it, and I'm going to try some new things. So I'm excited about that. And I really want to get my first witch trial video done and out this week. So I'm excited about that. I don't get as much views on my history videos, but on my historic videos, but I enjoy doing them and I enjoy researching them, and I love history. And I'm going to talk about this shit because I think it's important to remember these people that were killed by religion, and it's important to know your history and to remember people long forgotten. So I'm going to try to focus more on a people thing. What's up, Richard?
How you doing, Naka?
Oh, I'm pretty good. Pretty good. A little tired, but I'm awake and ready to go.
Is this the end of your workday, boss?
No, I had the weekends off. So I work third shift, so I'm used to sleeping during the day, and I can't sleep at night very well. So I only slept about 4 hours last night. So yeah, I'm gonna be. But I'm awake. I feel pretty good. Drinking my soda.
Well, let me start by saying peace and respect to you, sir.
Oh, thank you
so much for letting me on your channel. It's very nice.
Oh yeah. I'm enjoying. Looking forward to this conversation. I saw you on Skylar, and then you was in a little bit. I want to apologize. I thought you'd be able to come back in. I didn't mean to boot you out, and then you couldn't come back in last weekend.
Yeah, this time I actually remembered to shut the air compressor off.
So yeah, I just for some reason I couldn't mute you. I need to understand these little how to work this a little better.
Don't feel bad. I know absolutely nothing about it.
Yeah, it's I'm getting there. I think I'm gonna start using a different streaming platform, Zoom probably next month sometime. So it'll be a little different look and different feel. Lada's here. What's up, Lada? All the way from Sweden. So yeah, looking forward to this conversation. Eventually I do want to kind of delve into a topic I'm gonna start talking with every theist that I have one-on-ones with, sometimes in the panel discussions, is that that of coexistence. So we'll get into that later. But yeah, we can start wherever you want to start, and I'll let you go first, and you can talk about your channel. And I think I got the link is in the description below.
I appreciate that.
People can go check out your channel.
Well, right now it's just a playlist, but I've done 6 like this on other people's channels, and really appreciate the opportunity. I can't say that enough.
Oh yeah.
So it's just me talking about what I have to say is a very, very strange view of spiritual texts, and by spiritual text I mean all of them. How's my volume? I should have asked.
Oh, you're good for me.
I have hearing loss. So I have to have this thing jacked way up, and sometimes it's oversensitive, which is why you had such an interruption from my air compressor. I'm actually doing this from inside my shop.
Oh shit! Yeah, all right. That's yeah. I figured it was some kind of air compressor or something. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And anytime you like, if you want to, anytime you're on my channel, you can mirror and put it on yours. So feel free to do that. Yep.
I appreciate that. So what I'm trying to do is build a little bit of content so people can at least understand where I'm coming from. What I'm talking about is something that actually, and this is going to be very, very objectionable to Christians that I say this and yet call myself a Christian, although I probably should be calling myself interfaith. That although we have a lot of pride in ourselves, and we always believe that we personally are correct. What I find to be true, and this is not true of all religions. Some religions actually accept the other religion's validity. It seems prevalent in Christianity that they don't accept the validity of other religious expressions. But what I've been shown is a point of view that actually justifies all texts together and makes them just one thing. But it's a very particular point of view I've actually never heard of from any book, any woman, any man, any YouTube video, anything like that at all, and received it by other means on a personal basis. And I know that's a huge claim, but it happens to be true. So my point of view actually justifies all the problems within the texts and the problems of what appears to be conflict between the text. So that makes it really, really strange.
All right. Yeah, I think at the end of my Christianity, I went to a more universalist aspect of thinking. I think I was I'd pretty much come to the conclusion that there was a God, but he expressed himself in different ways to different people, I guess. That pretty much all religions in the history of the earth was that God, and our interpretations doesn't really matter. Yeah, I'd come to a universalist position, and then I did start reading other texts, and like I read the Bhagavad Gita, I read the Gospels, the Gnostic Gospels a really long time ago. I started reading alternative histories, some I would think legitimately call them conspiracy theories, like Holy Blood, Holy Grail. Books like that. I think there was like 2 Pillars of Judaism. I can't remember what the exact it was called, but pretty much like, John the Baptist was the actual savior. Histories along those lines. So I've read like a lot of different stuff that I think most people haven't read, and came to a lot of conclusions based off of that. And I've spent pretty much the last 15 years trying to debunk myself, pretty much. And I say,
well, you could be quoting the Bible right there.
Oh yeah, well, and like I have to say it a lot. Like I don't know if this is something that I read that was accurate, or if this is something still in my head from when I was reading Dan Brown and all that shit way back in the day. So I'm constantly having to update my information.
But shouldn't we all try to do that?
Oh yeah, I think so, but most unfortunately don't. What's up, Digital Hammurabi and Iron Charioteer? But yeah, that's interesting. That's very interesting. And that's one of the reasons why I was looking forward to this conversation, because you're not you're atypical Christian. A lot of things you say are going to make other Christians upset. People like Matt Powell would definitely say you're not a real Christian.
Oh, sure, but that's a true Scotsman fallacy right there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
How does he know that he's an actual Christian?
Yeah, and that's the argument with any of it is pretty much it doesn't really matter to me what your denomination is or what interpretation you have. It's how you live your life.
You know you're gonna have to ding yourself 1 point for saying that name.
Yeah, well, I'm putting it out there that yeah, we're gonna be saying his name again.
Okay,
I just can't keep calling him. Well, for one, it was way too close to Harry Potter, and I didn't really realize that when I came up with it, and I did shortly after, and I'm like, yeah, that's just like I kept calling him that he who has no name, So I'm like, man, this is just too close to Harry Potter, and then I just can't call a human being. Yeah, I'll be disrespectful to a human being, but I'm not. I'm going to call you by your name and give you that respect. I just can't.
I've looked at you pretty close, and what I actually see you doing is more defending yourself than attacking. And I don't think that's hard to justify that kind of an attitude.
Yeah, and that's what I've done. I've defended myself mostly. I did attack him at first, but again, it was he came on my page and started trolling me, so I attacked back. It's just,
right.
Like I would have never started making Matt Powell videos if Matt Powell didn't come and start talking smack to me.
If you hadn't been part of this community, and yes, I had seen that little movie that guy made, and he totally, I can't say it strongly enough, really misrepresented you. I thought, oh, this poor sweet guy is kind of retarded, and I thought you were really nice, but I thought you were super stupid. But here you are, you're an intelligent man, you're a well-spoken man. And the representation was nothing like who you are.
Well, yeah. And that's, he doesn't get that's why I'm mad. Like, dude, when I put out our conversations, I didn't edit anything to make Matt look any certain way,
It's dishonest.
Yeah. I just, for one, I didn't have to because Matt is Matt, and that's my whole goal was to capture who he really is. But yeah, if you have to resort to editing and using tricks to make yourself look better, that's not winning an argument. That's just using tricks to make yourself look like you won an argument. And he doesn't understand that. That's what I'm upset about. And all you have to do is I'm not even really looking for a sorry, just acknowledge, yeah, I did that. In the future, I'm not going to operate like that. It was wrong. Like that's pretty much all I'm looking for. And to stop with the reprobate shit, it's these words that are dangerous. It's these words that are, spoken to the wrong person can lead to people dying, and they need to be called out for it, but they don't need to be called out by me, the raging atheist. They need to be called out by other Christians that don't want that representation of their religion.
I'm trying to work my way that way. I promise you, boss, that's what I'm trying to do.
Well, and I don't expect it to happen overnight, but hopefully with this conversations that I'm going to be having with theists of all ilks is, it's basically the burden's on you guys. Yeah, us atheists, we're going to be here and screaming. We're going to scream about it because it's what we do, and we like screaming about it. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, if Christians don't want the Matt Powells of the world and the Steven Andersons of the world to be representing them, because right now they are, I'm sorry, a few bad apples spoil the bunch. If you need to be out there saying, no, this is not Christianity. Right. This is not the way, and we need to see that more.
If you don't mind me getting off topic for a second, I'd like to recommend to all your viewers, if you guys are interested in the ancient Near East, if you haven't heard about Digital Hammurabi yet, they have, real scholars, not just indigenous to that channel, but they invite real scholars on there. It's such a great learning experience. I've enjoyed absolutely everything they've done there.
Me too.
Brilliant people all the time. Really excellent show. And so I really recommend that to anybody who's interested in that kind of learning. And I'd like to talk a little bit about something that Shannon Q said not so long ago that really spurred me to prayer. And you've spurred me to prayer. Lots of people have. When you said something that was really profound and interesting, and I thought, well, that's a really good objection to the Bible. And here's what she said. She said, prophecy doesn't come true. And if it does, it's the practitioners that do it. Now, that's not a direct quote, but it's paraphrasing. But she said something to that effect. And I thought, she's wrong, but she's kind of right. If someone wrote a story and just left it on some commonly traveled path. And some person picked up that story, and it was a set of instructions of some kind. And that person followed those instructions and made it true. Well, it's kind of like if I build a deck for a doctor, and he's having a beer on the porch on the deck there with friends of his, and he goes, "Oh, I built this deck." Well, he didn't build that deck. Actually, I built that deck. So I mean, I understand it colloquially that can be used that way, but she raised a really good point. So a lot of the conversations that we have in the great debate community is talking about understanding of these texts. But it seems obvious to me that if the text weren't cryptic, which is what her objection really is, if the text weren't cryptic, then people would just do it. But if people do it, then God didn't. So there's an absolute necessity that these things be saved for a certain time.
Well, I think maybe what she was getting at would be, pretty much prophecy is self-fulfilling. So, maybe not the people that wrote the prophecies are going to fulfill it, but when that prophecy is written and you have certain conditions to meet, then people are going to try to fill those prophecies.
Of course they are.
So I think that's pretty much what she means by that prophecies, the moment they're written down, become self-fulfilling, and because people are actually, it's not happening because God is doing it. It's happening because these people are trying to make it happen.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's where she's getting at, and it's a common argument. I think that she's probably right, because and like I said, one of my major arguments against Jesus being God is that if you believe in the Immaculate Conception and you believe that Joseph had nothing to do with Jesus, well, the Bible specific, it clearly talks about Joseph being of the line of David. It does not talk about Mary being of the line of David.
There are problems, right?
So I mean, yeah, to fulfill that prophecy, you actually got to kind of scratch the Immaculate Conception. And I think that they probably did at the time. I don't think that the Immaculate Conception was an original idea for those times. I think it was something added to make him a god later.
Well, that's an interesting conversation. What do you mean by original for those times?
Well, I just don't think that, when Jesus was alive, they were I don't think he was going around saying, "Hey, I'm the son of God." Like the actual, my mom was a virgin. I don't think that he was going around saying that. People would have thought he was crazy. So even if it was a truth, I think that they would have had to have kept it secret, because nobody's going to believe that crazy stuff.
Oh, it's actually worse than that. Let me give you some ammunition, because part of my mission is to show this point of view to people who object to the Bible and biblical criticisms, to argue against Christians, and to empower more people to argue against Christians, to help convince Christians that they've got the wrong view that conflicts with itself. And so part of my job is to do that, in my view. So it's actually worse than what you just stated, saying that, okay, so Mary's a virgin, but if Christ is Christ, then he wouldn't go around talking about that. It's actually even worse than that. Imagine this. Put yourself, I mean, you're a dad, right? You got a kid. Mm-hmm. Okay, so put yourself in this position. So this woman is pregnant, and you're with this woman, and an angel comes to you and says, okay, you guys are going to birth the Savior of the world. Now, if you think the Dalai Lama is put in an ivory tower and set aside with no real experience, can you imagine the pressure on parents?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they'd wrap this kid in bubble tape and stick him in a closet. He wouldn't have a normal life at all. And just like I don't feel like a direct association between me and any president, including Trump, is because, well, they grew up wealthy. They don't understand me. They can't represent me, actually. Mm-hmm. So you can't have a king spoiled, rich from birth. This is no kind of a king.
Yeah. Along that point, I totally agree. I'm not going to lie. Since I found out that Bernie Sanders is a millionaire, makes me like him a little bit less,
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons I like AOC, even though I disagree with some of her policies, is because she is, one of us. She is a normal person, and I think that rings true. So yeah, I totally agree on that point. And as far as like Christians having the wrong interpretation, that's one of the things that I really want to start focusing on. And one of the things that I want to start talking with Dr. Josh more about and learning from his channel is that the original interpretations, what was originally written, and what did those original texts actually say? I don't really give too much context, too much historical content to them myself. I don't see them as, like I've said, I don't believe in magic. So if you don't believe in the supernatural aspects of the Bible, then you can't possibly believe that it was a true and accurate depiction of history. So, that's just my opinion, but I still want to know what those original texts say, because I think that the misinterpretations, and now there's thousands of different denominations of Christians, and they all say a different thing, and they all hate each other. You guys ultimately believe in the same God. You should it pretty much does say the same things. You are just taking this shit out of context so much, and it actually leads to so much animosity, and then wondering why us unbelievers are sitting here on the sidelines, just our heads exploding.
I'm not wondering why. I'm really clear on it, because I was an anti-theist for 30 years. I mean, from the time I was 12 until I was 42, I was totally on that side of the fence. No problem at all. I mean, dead in it too. I was actually pretty provocative.
Yeah, I was an anti-theist when I started out, and I'm growing out of it. I think, because I'm meeting people like you, or when you actually.
That's a huge compliment. Thank you. You embarrass me.
Well, you are such a contrast to Matt Powell. I can sit here and have an honest conversation with you and not worry in the slightest that it's going to be taken out of context, or you're going to.
I'm not trying to trick anybody.
But yeah, so to where he is, and just the feeling of the conversation is so much different. You go into it with your guard up immediately with that guy. You can't be a regular human.
I'm not sure who started it, but the first person I ever heard announce it online was Richard Dawkins, saying that to embarrass someone publicly, or even a private conversation, is sometimes exactly what they need. And to put that in context, he was talking about how he feels that Christianity is quite ridiculous and should be made fun of in face-to-face conversations between anyone who's agnostic or skeptical and any Christian. And to some extent, I agree with him, which is embarrassing that I have to agree with him, but he's kind of right. There are ridiculous things being said by people professing to be Christians where they deny reality that they know is true in order to hold to their belief system, their doctrine about the text. I'm very blessed that I don't have to do that. I don't have to lie at all. I don't have to deny any science. I don't have to deny any reality, because with the view that I've been given, it all actually works quite well together, which brings up the other thing that you just touched on, that people believe there are different gods for us. That I think that's a pride problem. They go, "Oh, my God's the right one." No, my God's the right one. That's ridiculous. What's being described in all spiritual texts is a matter of lineage and us just not yet being perfected. So it's like saying, "Oh, you're not my dad." Well, yeah, my dad's my dad. I don't care if I like him or not. It doesn't even matter.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that's kind of like one of my beefs with MMA, because it's not like she's coming out and saying like really hateful stuff.
I'm sorry, who's MMA?
She's one of the girls I cover in my Colt Bunny series. She's a really popular Christian YouTuber, but just really popular across all social media platforms. And she started a really big youth movement. I can't remember what it's called, but she says little stupid things about how the devil is real, and I make fun of it. And I don't really see most of the stuff she says is dangerous, but one of the things that she says that I find just really creepy is kind of what you're speaking of, is just the wrong message. It's not even the right interpretation of it. It's just she skews it slightly to fit this father narrative. Like recently she was talking about how even if you have a crappy dad, you still have your heavenly father. Well, no, if you have a crappy dad, you have a crappy dad, and you need to try to overcome that,
Right.
But she just makes it see, oh, it's all peaches and cream. You've still got your heavenly Father. Well, your heavenly Father just sent you a crappy dad and put you in a crappy situation, and it's not, it might be easy for you, MMA, to think that you can just get out of that because MMA has lived a comfortable life. She's a rich white girl,
Yeah.
So, but for other people, no, that's a really bad situation. And what if that crappy dad is more than just a crappy dad?
Right.
What if he beats you or sexually molest you? So,
or worse.
Yeah, having God in that situation doesn't help you. So it's just those little things that really irritate me. Like, you should really watch what you speak. No, I don't have a problem with people believing in God, but the moment you start telling people, like, the bad stuff that's happening to you doesn't matter, no, I have a problem with that.
I mean, a kid in that situation is really trapped. You have a choice between possibly abusive parents or a bad family life, and you've got child services. Measure those two out. They're both terrible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they just don't seem to get it. Like, I'm not trying to bring up politics, but the whole pro-choice, pro-life thing. All right, so most Christians in this country are pro-life.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you're for making these people have children they don't want, and you're going to bring these children into an environments where they're not wanted, they're not taken care of. I mean, whatever side of that argument falls on, there are shitty consequences, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So, but to use your religion to justify to me is wrong. Keep it in politics, because your religion has nothing to do with the governing of this country.
And
but
it's not
most
like
people think it should have something to do with the governing of this country.
Right. Well, there's an old argument, the problem of evil, and there's plenty already ink spilled on this topic. If she doesn't realize that there are problems in the world, or if her idea of a problem is a first world problem like static cling on her skirt, then that's just unrealistic. You can't just go around telling 8 to 13-year-old kids who might be watching your channel that they should just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It's not a reasonable suggestion, not at all.
My favorite comment ever to that pulling yourself up by your bootstraps was JR on the Young Turks, and he says, well, they ain't got no fucking boots and they ain't got no fucking straps. So kind of hard to pull yourself up by something you don't have.
I had about 100 exchange conversation with the gentleman who was telling me how terrible I am for believing in a God that forces people to exist in misery. And I'm the whole time I'm trying to talk about this with him, I'm thinking, dude, you're in America, you're using a computer. Don't tell me you're starving to death. Your life can't be that bad if you're arguing with me over a computer.
Oh yeah, and I think that this is where I think ultimately the God belief has to go. Is you have to realize that God, if you think that God does work in this world literally, like he has his hands delved in this world literally, and he's omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient, then you have to give him the blame for all the bad that goes. But obviously God, I don't think God exists, but like if the master of the universe does exist, if this mind that kind of keeps this thing together, right, is out there, we know that there's probably worlds upon worlds upon worlds that have life, maybe sentient beings just like us. This thing ain't gonna care about us earthlings. It's just not. Maybe it cares about the natural order of the way things should be, but clearly the evidence shows that. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't think that a good God that would create us and actually cared anything about us as individual beings would allow those things. It is a problem for believers.
Well, I've heard a singular young earth creationist say, well, I'm sure God has morally sufficient reason to.
I have an alarm going off. I'll be right back, Richard. Sorry.
I'll be here. Well, while he's gone, so we don't have a little bit of dead airspace, I'd say something that I've been wanting to say anyway since the beginning of this. Hello, world. I love you very much, and I know someday we'll all be friends. Now, I know that sounds like an outrageous claim, but I actually know that's going to be true, and I look forward to knowing all of you.
All right. Sorry about that. Yeah, for some reason, had my phone on top of my fridge. All right. Yeah, I kind of lost track where I was going with it, but I think ultimately, Christians are good people. They're just misguided. The problem of evil is real for God. So I think that God can't be what the interpretation of most people are. I think that if a God exists, that he's more of a uncaring, like neither good nor evil. It just neutral force that kind of keeps the universe together. I don't think it could possibly be any worldly interpretation that I've studied so far. I'm about to study paganist beliefs. Never really studied, paganism before. So I don't know, maybe I'll find something in there that I've never found before.
I think it's unjust to call those religious expressions pagan. I think it's a Christian idea to call them pagan. I mean, it's a disrespect that's not due.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. I think wasn't it the Romans that called them pagans? Just like it's pretty much like a demonology tactic we use it today when we talk about, those towel heads trying to go to war with Iraq. It's
exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just a form of prejudice and self-pride. That's all it is. It's nothing more.
Yeah. If you want to go to war on a people and wipe them out as Christians, and not just Christians, but Muslims, and I think Hindus as well, brutally wiped out all of those so-called pagan religions of the old days. I think it's the same exact thing. You're going to demonize people to make them less than human beings so you can go and kill them. It's an age-old tactic. It's a war tactic. Absolutely. Yeah. It really is. So yeah, I kind of agree on that. So, but like studying the old, like I've never really studied. I've read a lot of the myths, a lot of the stories, but I've never actually went in depth and studied the actual religion or how pagans today are practicing it. I'm learning more by knowing Ocean and speaking with him and watching his videos. But I maybe once I start really delving into the 2 books that I've got to start reading, maybe I will find something in there that I wasn't able to find with the other religions. The other religions' interpretations, to me, this whole one God thing, I think that if there is a God, that more than likely there'd be more of them. Why would there only be one?
Well, this seems like a really good opportunity to again piss off some Christians. So I'm going to go ahead and do that if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Okay,
I love pissing off Christians.
What's that?
I love pissing off Christians.
Well, I like making people think, and I mean, if they're understanding something that can't be true within their own text, they should be made alert of that. So in the Bible, God claims that He stands amongst gods. Now, most people miss that line or just forget about it or ignore it. But the truth of the matter is, and He says it more than once, he says He stands amongst gods. That should be both capital G, okay? And then he says other, and this takes a little bit of explanation, but I think it's totally justified within the text. He says when you get to the promised land, and in Christianity, the promised land is referred to as heaven. When you get to the promised land, there will be those there who do not call me God. He also says there'll be no liars. Okay, so they're telling the truth, saying He is not their God. Well, then just what are they? How can they be living in heaven, not being His children? Well, then obviously there's something other than His children. Well, if we're His children, then they must be different from us. So what will we call an intelligent who doesn't live here, who's not like us? What do we call that?
Aliens.
Exactly, as he's describing aliens in the Bible.
Oh,
now,
yeah.
Christians won't like that, but if you take it literally, that's what it says.
I sent a video to Dr. Josh, and after I sent it to him, I realized, oh man, I dropped some F-bombs in that quite a few times. But it's literally an interpretation of the New Testament. Going into it with with having an agenda to find things to create a narrative, right? So
Okay.
I found things that I thought could be describing what could be a UFO encounter, like aliens coming down, angels.
So you must have included the book of Ezekiel in that.
Oh, probably. Well, no, I just did the Gospels. It was just just the Gospels,
Okay.
and I think it was like over 100 passages that I actually found that I could. And then I went about creating a narrative to where Jesus is half alien and God is alien, and I wrote a paper about it. And I don't really believe it. It was just, to me, a way to show that look, this book can be interpreted in any different numbers of ways. But the ultimate question is just the question that you laid out, and I ask this of Christians all the time. Sometimes they get mad, sometimes they don't. Is wouldn't God, just the idea of it, fit the classic definition of what a fucking alien is? Whether you think,
let's see, he's not from this planet.
Yeah,
he's intelligent, and he says he's going to come here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's not human. We don't think.
Now that might be going too far.
Well, maybe he is, because he made us in his image, but I don't think most Christians wouldn't consider God to be a human being, but some essence or the Trinity or whatever the hell they believe. But yeah, he's not from Earth. Even if he is a human being, I think if human beings were to come from another planet, not from Earth, we would still consider them alien. So yeah,
at first, at least.
Yeah, until we found out, that we matched up 100%, and then it would maybe become a different conversation at that point. But
well, what's being described in the text is God's throne, the 4 beasts around God's throne, and 24 elders coming onto the earth. And they give measurements for this stuff. This God's throne is like the size of this planet, or actually a little bit bigger. These would stretch all the way across the United States, and these about halfway across the United States. So envision that arriving to the planet. I mean, yeah, people. I mean, I take the text to be very, very serious. Adam and Eve, that being man and woman on this earth, will in the Garden of Eden, will hide themselves from the face of God. Dude, if you saw that arriving to this planet, yeah, you'd run too. You might be screaming. You might poop your pants.
Oh yeah, and it says that quite clearly in the Bible. Like when angel visitations, like sometimes they usually would come from the heavens, which I'm like, my argument is the heavens is outer space. It's not talking about heaven. It clearly says heavens. It's talking about outer space. So these angels come down, and the people that are in contact with these angels are afraid at their physical appearance. They often cower, but it clearly says that they're afraid of these beings. So like, yeah, by definition, that's a damn alien. And
yeah, exactly.
I get in trouble for it. Some Christians are like, you're right. You're kind of right if you think about it like that. Some Christians, I could just tell, like inside, they're like, this dude needs to go fuck himself.
I think you were actually wise to take only the Gospels and inspect those, because if you did that on the whole Bible, you would have, a 500 or more page book.
Oh yeah. I started to do it on Revelations, and I'm going to finish with the thing about Revelations is it's so hard to really even interpret accurately. Like, I don't even see
how on your point of view.
Well, I just don't see how people take it seriously. Like, to me, it's like,
I tell you what, I couldn't take it seriously until I was given this point of view. Now it's, to quote Dr. Josh, if you think it's simple, you probably don't understand it.
Yeah, well, I think it's not simple at all. To me, it reads like the musings of a madman. Like
no, it definitely appears that way.
And I am trying to break it down, and it does clearly have some UFO kind of connotations that I already started to extract from it to create that narrative. But
right,
when they send the angels to the 4 corners of the earth,
that's explainable.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of it. It says it sends these angels with these trumpets, but what is that? Because they're flying through the sky. This loud noise, fucking flying saucer to me, but
let me lead you through the line of logic, if you don't mind. Just things you already know. So in your mind, or even out loud, if you want to state some of them, that would be helpful. Name everything that you know of that is capable of flight, or each kind of thing that is capable of flight, in your opinion?
Well, we got birds, of course. We've got airplanes, gliders,
Sure.
helicopters.
Right.
I think we probably have a lot more that we don't know about. See,
It's a pretty good chance of it.
kites, frisbees. I don't know. I have to think about it longer. I'm sure there's more.
No, that's a good enough list. That's a good enough list to go on. So of those things that you just named, what of those things can have eyes within?
Pretty much the man-made constructions. So like
Right.
the
Okay.
airplanes.
So of the things you got to keep out of that list, how many of them can make an intelligent speech? Well, you have to be intelligent to make intelligent speech, right? So it has to contain intelligent animals.
Yeah. So yeah, it would be the aircraft again.
And here's the last qualifier: it's not from this planet.
Yeah. That's
okay, this is a description of the four beasts around God's throne.
Yeah.
The four beasts of God. That's their description.
And I'm not saying, because I don't think that the gods are coming back, and I think that there's probably aliens out there somewhere, but I've never seen evidence that they've been able to get here. I would love to see evidence of that.
The Fermi paradox.
So yeah, I mean, so while I just don't know if they could, like, I don't even know if that technology is possible to get from so far away to another place. So it's interesting to think about, but like I've always said that, like, if these texts are real, then people were actually writing things that they were seeing. They didn't have words that we have today, and they definitely spoke in a different way than we do today.
Sure.
They definitely wrote in a different way that we did today. So if all of these stories are true, then to me it would be old ancient UFO encounters with beings coming from other planets. That's the only real logical explanation to me, because I just can't get behind magical creatures. Well, and I would think maybe those superior intellects would be deceiving and pretend to be gods so they could have control over this species or whatever. So I mean, I think it's it's one of the few logical conclusions to the problem of religion.
Right.
Is fuck, it's aliens. I mean, what else could it be? It's a logical conclusion, I think.
I think it totally makes sense that we're killing this planet slowly, and that we, unlike other animals, do not find equilibrium in our own environments. And I think that's completely natural that we're that different. That is to say, what I'm postulating is you can call God and angels aliens, but you have to call us aliens along with that.
Well, I mean, I think we will be aliens if we are able to ever actually visit other planets. But I don't know. Like I said, I don't. To me, like, I don't really believe God, and I don't think that aliens came back, came to this planet thousands of years ago, and I think it's more likely that human beings created stories to control people. I think history pretty much clearly shows that with religion anyway, that religion was created as societies came together. Rulers needed a way to keep these large societies in line, and hence religion came and was a good way to do that. It was a very much needed thing in human progression. I've always argued that, like, we really needed religion back then. I don't think we do anymore. That's the discussion is,
well, if your child is hungry, do you first sit them down for a math lesson? Of course you don't. The first thing you do is to feed them. I mean, there's a natural order to what it takes for a singular individual or a society to survive. So, I mean, the first thing you need is you need air. After that, you need water. After that, you need food, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a long, long list of things you need. One of the last things you need is an explanation of spirituality. Yeah. So before you could ever have that yeah, it's true. I mean, that's a high functioning thing. It's not strict survival. So one of the first things that would have to be established is a cooperative environment of several people before they could ever have time to sit down around a fire and talk to each other. So I think it comes in exactly the same order. That is, I'm saying there'd be no difference between what you just said, us inventing it at the right time. Not, and if I straw man you, please point it out. But there'd be no difference between us inventing it at the right time to control a society and a society big enough that they could receive it and actually have time to review it.
Yeah, oh, and I don't think it was all nefarious means. Like, I don't think it was just simply a tool of control. I think people were probably trying to figure shit out. I think that, you know, how could you not, especially back then, you could actually see the stars in the universe. You can't, you know, unless you,
it just gets worse. Yeah.
Unless you just go out into the middle of nowhere, you're not going to see what these people were seeing everywhere before. And that is the stars up there. You know, we just don't really see the stars anymore. So how could you not look out at that and come up with explanations, you know, and to them, with the information they were given at the time, I think that they came to the most logical conclusions that they could. Oh, it was, you know, it was the sky god, or the god of rain, the god of thunder. At first, it was like really dark gods that demanded human sacrifice.
Right.
But, you know, how could you not just, human beings imagine it's what we do. And to me, it's all right. Religion is obvious imaginings. I don't put any truth into them, but they're good stories. And the problem is, especially with not so much this country anymore, although I do see it reverting back, is when the religions have political control over the country. And that's always a problem. And I think that's why we have to continue to combat it, because if we give them enough leeway, they're going to go for it. And we already see it. One of Trump's new people he's considering is a member of a fucking hate group. Far right. I mean, it's getting crazy. It's getting crazy. Another person is he's got so many far right evangelical like people in his administration right now.
Sure.
Like, it's really scary for a person like me. Nobody's really talking about it. You know, everybody's talking about Trump. Nobody's talking about the crazy ass evangelicals he has surrounded.
Right. Right. Well, you know, it's obvious to me that if scripture was easy to understand, and I mean in every religion, then you wouldn't have different sects. And just how many sects are there? You'd have to take a new survey every week to keep up with how many sects there are in Christianity. So I think it's obvious that it's not easy to understand. The reason that they have to deny parts of reality is because they have misunderstandings of it, or it's not a work of God. I mean, God would understand what reality is, and he wouldn't write something that doesn't comport with reality. That wouldn't even make sense. And beyond that, if your God is prejudice and hates some people on this earth, then I'd say that I have better morality and better sense and better love and better acceptance than your God. Well, yeah, I think you should drop that God.
Well, I think they should start dropping that argument, because it makes your God not what you say he is. You know,
exactly.
How can an omnipresent, omnipotent God who has ultimate power and created all of us then go and hate a specific type of us? You know, no, like right. we would all be a reflection of it. So yeah, I think Christians need it. To me, that is a very weak argument that Christians have. But that's just me. Like I've often said that, like, you guys argue against your version of God with your own argument, sure, and you don't even realize it.
That's right. They do. They actually do. Yeah, which is sad, and there's no need for it. The way I see these religious expressions, they're all saying the same thing. I mean, if I were in the United States and my feet were glued to the street and a city bus were coming, and I'm a U.S. citizen, and say I'm out near ranching country, and a herd of cattle stampede through, and one of them hits me, but the cow stumbles, but it knocked me clear of the bus and saved my life. But that cow gets hit by that bus. Well, to me, I'm like wondering, well, what started the stampede, right? Now let's change that. Let's make me a Hindu man in India. That is not the same story at all. Now my grandmother saved me. you know? So
Okay.
you can't tell everyone in every society around this planet the same story in the same way. There'd be a necessity that you state it differently. So I
Mhm.
think that's what happened as they needed it.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. Like, that's the point that I got into at the end of my Christianity was that God spoke to different peoples in different ways.
You
So
have to.
people it ended up having the Hindu tradition, and people ended up having the Buddhist tradition, but it was all the same God trying to give people morals and all of that. And I came to that conclusion. Ultimately, I reject it solely for this reason, and that's because I've just never seen any evidence for it. Like, we can think that something imaginary is doing all of these things and trying to guide us in a certain direction as humanity,
Sure.
but the direction of humanity is what, though? I mean, we have wars. We're still killing people over resources.
Sure.
Where have we progressed, and what this
No, we're
grand
getting worse.
yeah, the grand plan doesn't seem to be working. So to me, it's the only thing that's here is humans, and we've got to reach human beings. And you're not, you know, it's hard to reach people that have been indoctrinated, but it's I think also just as hard to reach somebody like me or a fellow atheist who are so staunch in our stance. You're not going to really change our mind. It's one
No,
thing that
stubbornness is good. I actually look for stubborn people.
yeah,
In fact,
and I
I look
admit
for
I'm stubborn
intelligent
as
people
hell.
who are stubborn. I mean, that's what I need.
Yeah.
Because if some of the stuff that I'm talking about is much smarter than I am, although I'm able to get it, and it really requires a person to be highly intelligent to be able to process these things. I mean, they're kind of complicated ideas when
Yeah.
you get into the meat of it.
Yeah, and my point, it goes along with what Iron and Chad is saying. What is spirituality? Is it demonstrable? And that's, to me, ultimately the conclusion that I just can't see where it's demonstratable. Maybe it is God, and He has guided us in a certain direction. And if it
I
is,
actually have a reasonable argument for that.
oh, go for it.
Okay, so if we study epistemology, that is understanding of how we know things, and we look at that, we know that we learned by certain ways. Like, for instance, we have the known thing that is known. That's what you obviously already know. Then you have the known unknown, which is things you know about but haven't learned about. But
Mhm.
then you have the unknown unknown. Okay, that is things I can't even learn because I don't even know they exist. You know,
Yep.
I could learn about quantum physics because I've heard of it, but there's things I haven't heard I can't even learn about. You know,
Oh yeah.
so within that last core category of the unknown unknown, I have no ability to learn. So that's where new discoveries lie, is in that area. So if a new discovery happens, it's necessitated that these things build upon each other, just like science progresses slowly over time. We expect that we will build on present knowledge. So what we shouldn't see ever, what is not possible, is great leaps forward with no foundation. That is to say, I cannot just instantly know something out of nowhere. Now, I can cite for you about 1,000 examples since 2012 of things that have happened to me where I have known about them with no prior knowledge. I could not have had prior knowledge. I had no opportunity to ask a person on this planet at all. And yet, when I went out to see if it was true, I found it was true. And I mean, some things other people have confirmed for me. Like, I've told people some parts of their life story in great detail, and I've seen a woman just burst out crying when I told her things about her family that she needed to hear. Not that it was important to me. I mean, to me, it was just like telling a fairy tale. It had nothing to do with me, but it helped her a lot. And I think actually, when we start analyzing epistemology, we can find several things in each of our lives, probably starting at about around age 10 or 11 years old. And we have labels for these things. We call it intuition, coincidence, serendipity, karma, dharma. We call it all kinds of things. But the truth is, when you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, we commonly know things that we can't know. And it happens actually all the time, so often that we kind of ignore it. I have this friend who's a genius. He says to me, do you ever realize that when you're talking to someone and you're trying to explain something to them and they don't yet understand, you'll automatically, without them twitching or even giving them time to respond, you'll automatically understand that they don't understand it, and you'll start paraphrasing yourself to re-explain. How'd you know that? I mean, they haven't had time to twitch an eyebrow or look blank or anything, and you're already re-explaining it. And if someone can't do that, we think they're a weirdo. So what I'm saying is this stuff is not only possible, it's common. It's so common, it's ignored, is what I think is really going on.
Yeah, I got into my Native American spirituality. I met a medicine man. I think I was 21. Met him in, I think it was Charlotte, North Carolina. I was living in Charlotte at the time. So, yeah, and when I first met this dude, he was able to tell me things about my past. And you know, I'm not equating this to your story at all, because
might be exactly the same. I'm fine with that.
It's not because you know, this particular medicine man was a fraud, and he was getting information from a counselor. So he knew a lot of stuff about me, but came at me like he didn't. So he went and investigated you and then tried to trick you? Well, he got information from my counselor about my heritage, and because the things that he was able to tell me that made me think that he had this special sight was, you know, he knew my exact amount of Native American blood. He knew that I was Irish and I was this, and you know, he knew the story that led to us being in Michigan, that side of my family being in Michigan. So, you know, it blew me away that he knew it, but he turned out to be a fraud. Now, I do think that these type of things happen. Like, you're right, that intuition is something that is a bit weird. I think we're still, maybe it's a thing and maybe it's not even a thing. I think I don't know what to think about intuition and those little things. I think some people just have a natural ability to feel people, you know, if that's the right word. And so, yeah, but to me, that's easily logically to do. Like, some people can just do that, and you can just pick up little things from people that gives you clues into their life, maybe, and maybe you know some things that lead to those conclusions as well.
Sure.
But I don't think that it's mystical in any way. Like, I don't think it's God. You know, like, I have dreams all the time. Like, this shit happens to me all the time. I can't explain it, but I have dreams that happen, you know, like, and then once they're happening, you realize.
What do you mean you can't explain it?
Well, I mean, it's just, it's weird but I think that things are going to happen. So if you have a dream and you're in this certain situation and it ends up happening, well, it's just because those types of things end up happening. So then when it happens, you get this really weird feeling. Oh, I dreamed this shit. And you think you're having some, you know, future telling experience, but in reality, it's just your mind creating scenarios that.
Do you know how to tell the difference?
No, I don't think there's really any way to tell.
Yeah, there's definitely, a scientific way to define the difference between whether it's your brain playing tricks on you or not. And all it takes is a notepad. Get a notepad, keep a pencil, put it right there beside the bed. And anytime that you have a dream, whether you think it's significant or not, don't worry about that. Go ahead and write it down.
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying, though. I think dreams, I think your brain is creating scenarios that it's like prophecy, you know, or self-fulfilling prophecy. You know, your brain is just creating these scenarios that are going to happen at some time. So when it actually does happen, then you get this feeling of deja vu, this feeling like, hey, I can tell the future. When in reality, it's just your brain is a complex fucking computer in your head that is sophisticated enough to put these scenarios together to understand. You know, I think dreams are just your brain telling you stories while you're sleeping. You know, dreams are fucking weird. Like, I don't know where dreams come from, you know. Like, I want to know all this stuff, and I'm sure that there is scientific explanations. It's finding the time to learn.
Yeah.
So that's my problem always is time. I had somebody bitching at me in Facebook. Because, like, why don't you read the whole comments before you respond? I'm like, dude, I ain't got time to read all these comments.
Right. That's just
I'm going to read the last paragraph and I'm going to respond.
What else are you going to do?
You know, maybe some people have enough time to do that. Not me. I don't have enough time. You know, I have to scratch fucking live, or excuse me, I have to scratch live streams just to hang out with my daughter.
Wow.
My time is just gone. I don't have any. I know Robert in the chat is having fun with this. I don't know who he is. If he might be a troll, but he's having a lot of fun with this.
I can't see chat.
It's after 4 p.m. I don't drink Pabst Blue Ribbon, and no beer for me today, Robert. No beer for me today. And pot in my mother's basement will stunt your growth. Maybe Chipotle menu would be easier for these two. Funny shit, dude. What's up, Athena? Maybe he thought that the Raging Atheist is going to go off on a Christian. I don't go off on people unless I think that they're being devious and misleading with me. You know, like if I'm going to have an honest conversation. I think you have very different interpretations of Scripture and just what God is in general compared to a lot of people. And to me,
Sure.
that's unique. I want to find out about it.
Well, I tell you what,
I definitely don't disagree with your versions of God. Like it's not going to bother you. You're not bothering people with it. You know.
See, this is what I see described in chapter 4 of the book of Revelation. That's heaven arriving to the earth. Now that's what I actually see described. And I know that Christians don't agree with me on that, and I don't expect people to agree with me unless it happens. You know, once it happens, I expect them to agree.
Yeah, I don't see too many Christians that I know personally would probably agree with your. And I know, like when I try to talk to them, it's basically led them not wanting to talk to me anymore. You know, like because I'll ask them crazy shit.
But they can't support their argument. They fight with themselves. They ignore science and reality. And all of that to follow a view that can't even agree with other Christians.
Yeah, well, and that kind of goes way back to your point on what Richard Dawkins said. And I kind of agree with it and I kind of disagree with it. You know, like I think that we should call out every Christian that we know and have these conversations with them. They don't want to have those conversations, though. And that's why I kind of disagree with it, because what you end up doing is pushing people you love away. So, I mean, it is a double-edged sword. Like, I agree. Like, we should be challenging people's beliefs. It'll be healthier for their beliefs to be challenged, you know, but they don't want to have that challenge. And the moment you start to do it, there's a very good chance you're not going to have those people in your life anymore. You know?
Well, I can offer to you right now that you can say absolutely anything that you think might be negative, may be positive, just as long as you're actually speaking about something that's important to you. I'll hear it and I'll seriously consider it, and we'll have a serious conversation about it. And that includes attacking my belief systems. I'm not scared of that, and I don't get offended. I really look at it like this. If my Father is so great and so strong, why do I need to defend him?
Oh yeah, and that's why I like. To me, the Bible is undefendable, and that's why, like, if you have a literal interpretation of the Bible, then you're practically worshiping a douchebag. So, like, you've got to be able, in my mind, to keep your humanity. I would think you've got to rationalize it to not being that douchebag, and I think a lot of Christians do that successfully. But then the apologist is where I get it. Like, you know, I like SJ, but she's an apologist, and she apologizes for the douchebaggery instead of rationalizing it away. And to me, that's just like, to me,
well, it can't be rationalized away in their worldview, Knock. It just can't be done.
Well, yeah, to them, it's like taking away from God and more reason to believe in that God, to where, to me, like, those are the reasons why I just can't believe in that God. You know, that's why I got out of Christianity. I cannot believe in that God. And it was the God that was being presented to me, you know.
Well, it's logically incoherent. Their view is self-defeating. It's defeated within the text.
Yeah, real quick, sorry, Space Ranger. Yeah, X talked about that a little bit. I'm gonna go check that out at some point tonight. But there's a new article out about Matt Powell on the Friendly Atheist. X came on last night, and I haven't changed my thumbnail yet. I need to change it so people know the X was on. But he came on for a little while, and he was talking about that, and I want to go check that out. Just haven't had a chance yet. I shouldn't have watched Aquaman earlier. It wasn't even really that good. But I mean, it wasn't as bad as like Justice League, but it wasn't really that good. The story and the acting was just really great special effects, but just gosh, my daughter loved it. She was like wide-eyed, like getting into it, smiling. And I'm like, man, when is this thing gonna be over?
If I could have the imagination of a child again.
Oh yeah. Just what I love, man, like. Like we watched the first Star Wars a couple weeks ago, and I was like, man, she's not going to like the first one. The first one was the lowest budget, and, like the story was, they worked with what they had. But she loved it, man. And, I just had this thought, like, Star Wars, this movie is just never going to lose its magic. Like in 60 years, little kids are going to be watching this movie wide-eyed like she was, like I was as a child. And it just... To me, those are the best moments being the dad, is seeing your child do things that you did in your childhood that made you feel so happy. Like Star Wars was something that I just loved and looked forward to. We saw Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi in theaters when it came out. The first one came out like the year I was born, I think. So no way I saw that one in the theaters, but we saw the other two, and it was just like really happy memories of my childhood. So when I'm sharing that with my daughter, even though I thought, man, this movie's not as good as I remember it way back in the day, like just her reaction to it was awesome, man. It was
right on.
And I'm looking forward to that tonight. Like me and her, we're going to watch Empire Strikes Back. She hasn't seen that one yet. So she's going to love it. And it's to me, it's not even really about watching the movie. It's about watching her watch the movie.
Right. Well, if we forget the importance of our children, we forget the meaning of life.
Yeah. Well, and that's where I'm at. And that's why I've been trying to warn my audience that it's going to be less edited videos. I'm still going to do Girl Defined and I'm still going to do what I do, but I'm not going to be putting out 3 a week edited videos anymore. I can try to make up with it with live streams. Although, time has to be, when I'm doing something in the week, like time, if I'm done at 8, I got to be done at 8, so, but I'm just trying to consider different ways that I can make more time, not only to spend time with my daughter, because I want to spend more time with her, not only to have more time to read, but also to go into Discord servers with Dragnaut and Ocean and really, refine my debate technique. Before I go back onto a platform, I want to be able to debate my ass off instead of just going in it winging, pretty much like I do with everything. I just wing everything. It's my downfall, and I do word stuff wrong to where if I'm better prepared, that wouldn't happen. I wouldn't be wording stuff wrong, so stuff like that. Do more one-on-one interviews like this. I do want to do more one-on-one interviews like this. And next week, Aaron Benton is going to be coming on. So that's going to be something to look forward to next week.
I'm not sure who that is.
He's a dude. He was on Scholar Fiction too. I saw him on Scholar, and we started talking in Modern Day Debates last debate with Dr. Price on it. So it was like last night, I think. Yeah. So, but he seems like another genuine dude. Like he's more of a conventional Christian. But he's definitely not Matt Powell, and
Was he the moderator with Sheffield and Price?
No. That was a guy named Jacob, I think. No, but he was in the chat, and
okay.
I started because I wanted to talk to him since I saw him on Skylar, like I wanted to talk to you since I saw you on Skylar. Hopefully Skylar comes back because I seem to meet people on Skylar. Skylar gets someone like, I want that guy.
He'll be back. He's just busy right now. He'll be right back.
Yeah, he's gonna be back. But yeah, I like these. It's a lot easier to actually talk to a theist one-on-one outside of having a 9-person room where you have to pretty much scream to get the attention.
Yeah, I've seen that happen. That happened once to me. Yeah,
it's hard when there's 9 people in a room, 10 people.
Right.
But
which I'm not referring to my experience on your channel, but my experience on Atheist Edge. I think it's a safe assumption to say that a Christian is a Christian, and I did self-identify as a Christian. But man, they couldn't help it. I'm not blaming those guys. They're great guys. They're intelligent guys. But they kept assuming things and accidentally strawmanning me. I mean, I couldn't even get an idea in there edgewise.
Yeah, that's the hard thing with those big rooms. And me and X were kind of talking about it last night. People in the room last night, like, for me, I do YouTube videos, so I'm really comfortable. I've been doing them for 3 years now. I'm really comfortable in front of a camera. I'm really comfortable talking to this microphone. It's really easy for me to just start talking. Whether I'm right or wrong, it's easy. I can do it. To where others, they're trying to wait for that moment, and when there's 9 people, that moment ain't coming.
That's a fact.
You got to jump in.
What do you think, Knock? What do you think is the most ridiculous part of any spiritual text anywhere?
All right, that's a good question because I've read a lot of them. To me personally, Buddha sitting under the tree for 20 years is just like, it's stupid. Like, it's what led to me no longer being a Buddhist.
Okay.
And it's why I could never really become that religious Buddhist. I just used it more for philosophy and spiritualism. I didn't really believe it as a God belief, because of that ridiculous story. I'm like, he did not sit under that tree for 20 years talking to animals. it didn't happen.
Well, I know people have become hermits for longer than that, but I don't think that's what the story's about. It's not about him actually sitting under a tree. But what he had done was he went and talked to everybody that he thought was worth talking to, who could give him some guidance. And he found out all the guidance was crap. So he didn't really have a choice but to sit down and shut up.
Well, one of the things I liked about the story was he was a rich man that gave up being rich. That's one of the things that like drew me into it in the first place. Was I was starting to develop my progressivism. I was coming out of conservatism and being that bigoted person. I was definitely becoming more humanist, and Buddhism was a easy way for me to slide into humanism, because Buddhism it's a very peaceful, tranquil state of being if you're doing it right.
Well, I have to say, I've only known of your existence for about 2 months now, but it's hard for me to imagine, knowing you as you are now, that you might have been a prejudiced, bigoted, self-righteous, blah, blah, blah. That's hard for me to imagine. So good job for you.
Yeah, it's hard for anybody that knows me, except for people that knew me back then, to imagine it. I get told that it's like, you weren't really like that. That's just something you say. Like my friends that watch my videos. And I'm like, no, I was really like that. I woke up to it really, really early though, and I was lucky that I woke up to it really early. I woke up and I looked at that rebel flag, and man, I just had to rip it down. I didn't want that shit on my wall anymore.
Right on.
Most people don't get to that point. Like I was lucky. I don't even know why it happened. I know that I had met a black friend, and he changed the way I looked at everything, and from there, even after I gave up the racism, I was still homophobic. Like I was deeply homophobic. I told my cousin one time, I'm like, oh, you're not really gay. You just need good dick, because she's a lesbian. Like I remember saying that, and now 20 years later, from the time I spoke those words, I could never imagine myself saying those words to somebody.
Right. Just a terrible thing to say.
Yeah. I mean, and just completely dismissed who she was as a person. And she couldn't respond to it. Like she just kind of nodded and laughed at it like it was a joke, and it wasn't a damn joke. She should have slapped me.
It's funny. You look back at that, and she really handled it much better than you did.
Oh yeah. Like she should have slapped the piss out of me. And
that's what's making me angry, or not angry, but more disappointed with Christians. Is I see Christians coming on and debating with atheists, and the polite one is the atheist.
All right, yeah. Somebody's got a question for me. Atheist Rationale said that Aaron Benton is NIFB. If that's true, that conversation is going to get really interesting. But Deep and Shu Sharma, sir, I have a question. Your permission is required so that I can move ahead. So ask your question. It's like I just came and saw and heard that you guys are talking about God. Yes, so right now you're stopping that talk. Ask your question.
Could have been done by now.
I'm glad you're here, though. We'll continue talking, and if I see you ask a question, I'll try to respond. Because I do want to cut this off at 5:30. That'll give me like a half an hour to prepare for Messenger. Messenger, you're in the chat. So I was going to email you this.
How's it going, John?
Between shows. Richard here wants to be a part of our conversation. I told him I don't have a problem with it, so it'd be up to you.
I promise I won't talk too much, John.
So if you wanted to just be one-on-one, that's perfectly fine. Maybe having an ally for the beginning of it will be good for you, you know.
I don't think he needs my help, man.
Well, yeah, I don't think it's gonna, you know, but like as we're addressing the whole PTSD thing from last weekend, he might want somebody there in support. So I mean, that's completely up to you, Messenger. But yeah, 15 minutes, and I want to cut this off. So you better ask your question, dude.
So what do you think is the most ridiculous part? You said
the Buddhist thing was silly to me, but like going into the Christian religions, let me think about that, because it would be very easy for me to give a list. The talking serpent, ridiculous.
The talking serpent.
The Samson Hercules guy that had superhuman strength because he didn't cut his hair, ridiculous. Right. You know, so many things. Parting of the Red Sea. We know that it was probably the Reed Sea, and it wasn't actually a parting, but a natural occurrence that Moses would have taken advantage of at the time. You know, things like this that I just find ridiculous. You know, the floating column as Moses is leading the people out. Well, we know that was actually a military strategy. Moses just flipped it up. Instead of having the pillar in the back, he put his pillar in the front, I think, or instead of having it in the front, he put it in the back. That's all he did. Nothing mystical and magical, and yet people think that there was this floating pillar and God was right there leading his people out. And I'm like, that's ridiculous.
I usually don't pick on the scholarship because I think through the years and many, many serious people, some of them thinking if they did a bad job, it would damn their spirit to hell, did the very best they could in translating from the ancient Aramaic and Hebrew and Greek into the English and other languages. So I think really they've done a pretty good job. But I think sometimes they were so bent on doing it perfectly that they kind of overdid it. Wow. If you look at the word Egypt from the story of Exodus, you'll find that the word Egypt actually doesn't mean a place. It means to be restricted in ignorance.
Yeah, we have some ignorance going on. I finally understand, Robert, you are obviously a Matt Powell butt boy. Don't appreciate your comments at all. But you're not to the realm yet that I would say, like, ban this motherfucker. Or, you know, hide him. You're not there yet, but you're getting there. And Deepanshu, man, that is some weird stuff. Like, all right, so let's read it. I heard past doesn't exist. The past did exist. It happened. Like, you can't even prove that last Thursday exists, actually. Yeah, I was there last Thursday, so I can prove that because I was there.
We got film footage of last Thursday. Somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, there was a basketball game, I'm sure, or some kind of game. You know, look it up. Good question. What? As God is believed. Yeah, I don't understand. Like, dude, you are some, like, you're on that way out there type shit, man. Like, you have weed I want to smoke.
Tell him next time you use all 200 letters.
Yeah,
make coaching sentences.
I'm not quite catching you, man. But yeah, I like these conversations. The messenger did say that you're welcome. Marty won't be there. She had to work. She was hoping, I think it would be later.
Thank you, John.
So, but yeah, he said that you can come in. That will be starting at 6 o'clock. So we got about 10 more minutes. I like the direction we're going. I like these questions because I can. Well, and most Christians don't ask you that. You know, they don't want to hear the things that you find ridiculous.
Oh, so that's the most interesting part.
Yeah, well,
because that helps me to deconstruct the dogmatic view that people have about that the Christians have, and the Christians are spreading it around. You know, they're making themselves seem ridiculous. Yeah,
and I respect Christians that take it as allegory, you know. And if you just came at me, oh, it's all allegory, or okay, me and you were at least close to the same page, right? But you take it literal, like you think a snake talked. You really think that because they don't have the organs, you know.
Right.
Like, I don't care if Satan changed his shape into a snake, he's still a snake, and he's got snake organs, and he can't talk.
Yeah, if that's what the story was about, it would be ridiculous.
Yeah, and then the fact that they try to make it Satan, even though, like, when it speaks of Satan in the Bible, it says Satan, right. And that story clearly says serpent, not Satan. Yet they still claim it's Satan. Give me evidence that was Satan, because to me, the Bible says it's a snake, it's a serpent. Maybe not a snake, maybe a mythical dragon, but something like that.
Well, I showed this already to some of the guys from Atheist Edge, but I have actually I have websites saved that have photos on them. So now 3 of those photos are maps of part of this Earth, and one of them is a Hubble Deep Field 2-week long photograph of a nebula that is so far out there we had no opportunity to know it exists until Hubble. Mm-hmm. And what you'll see in that relief map of the Euphrates River Basin in floodplain is an image that is the same as that nebula. That is, there's a part of the nebula that's used up that was carved in the Euphrates River Basin. We don't know exactly how long ago, but estimates put it somewhere around 6,000-year-old carving. And I'm not talking about something some kid did with a stick. I'm talking about a carving that's about the size of Texas.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and I mean, they are the same. The only difference is in one, the hump in the back of the serpent is upward facing, and in other, the hump is downward facing. But other than that, I mean, it takes no imagination to say. In fact, they call it the Snake Nebula because anyone who looks at it sees this snake in it.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me, yeah, and I know, like, the ancient astronaut theories. There are some interesting geographical things, like that can be seen from the sky, and that's one part of the ancient astronaut theory that I've been fascinated with. But I think it's easily explained, and it's not like what they explain on ancient astronaut theory or Ancient Aliens, the show on History Channel.
Do you have a theory on the Nazca lines?
Well, I think it's all like like Dr. Josh says, they're not giving these human beings enough credit. Like I think that these were very smart human beings that figured out, maybe with math, maybe with geometry, I don't know how they did it, but they figured out how to make patterns like this that would be seen from the sky. And I think that they could very clearly try to be talking to the gods because they thought God was right up there looking down on them. So, I mean, I don't, they have to be in the sky to be able to do that and see. No, I think that with.
Oh, you could plan it out.
I think that they were smart enough to figure it out.
Sure.
But yeah, I think that it is what you mentioned. What was that again? Like the
Nazca lines?
Yeah, the Nazca lines. I think there is a case that could have been maybe a airstrip way back in the day. It could have been, I don't know, like farms or something. Like who knows over the course of all these years what kind of environment that was to begin with. It could have been a number of reasons, but I think it's interesting to think that maybe it was an airfield.
Have you heard of the cargo cult? Have you ever heard of the cargo cult?
I don't think so.
Well, there's actually a couple of them. If you look up cargo cult, you'll find that there's people in remote parts of the world where we've or other people have brought in rescue supplies and given them supplies. And what the people have done is they've reconstructed an airstrip, including like air control towers for these airplanes to land on, but there's no airplanes anymore. Mm-hmm. And it's the trying to invite the airplanes back is their religion.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll have to look into that. Because I do have a series, Crazy Cults, that I haven't updated with any new shit.
They're very interesting. These are people that never saw technology until the developed world landed an airplane amongst them, and they just didn't know what to do.
Yeah, well, that's like that one tribe. I think they're in like Africa, maybe, or there's some really remote area, right? And they never had a god, I don't think. And then they got like the picture of this like prince from England. And they made this guy their god. Well, this prince just happens to somehow show up to this fucking. It was an interesting story I read a long time ago. Like it's funny. Like people when given in the right circumstances, we have seen these religions come to existence, so we can see it happening today.
Sure.
We know that it happened in the past, like you can almost put yourself back there just by witnessing some of the things we're seeing today.
I'd have to argue why would we even have that tendency? Certainly I don't see any. Well, first of all, I think there's a lot of holes in social Darwinism, but I don't see any reason why that would be to our survival advantage to put all the power in one person or one being's lap, so that we don't. I mean, a democracy works and cooperation works so much better than an authoritarian or any kind of. I don't know.
Well, and I think that's why, like, the original gods were gods and not this monotheistic thing that pretty much dominates the world now. I think, you look at the Norse gods or the Greek gods, the Roman gods, it was these various figures with very different personalities, so I think that's a much healthier way of looking at gods. Because then, all right, so these beings aren't perfect. These beings make mistakes and they fight with each other, and they're more human in that way.
Sure.
Than this monotheistic figure that somehow loves us enough to give us cancer. To me, it just, no, I don't think anybody was saying that Zeus was giving people cancer. They were afraid of the lightning coming down. To them, that was Zeus.
Yeah.
So,
well, Christians are polytheistic too. They just don't really realize it.
Well, yeah, and I know that there is that debate going on now, especially with the Catholic Trinity, and evangelicals who believe in the Trinity. That explain to me how it's not, more than one God, because it clearly is. It clearly isn't just one dude. Even if there are three different versions of the same thing, ultimately, which is really weird and has a whole lot of problems.
You should watch the conversation between the Truists and myself on Modern Day Debate, where we reviewed everything you just said.
Yeah, I'll check it out. I didn't realize it was on Modern Day Debate. Yeah, I'll have to go back and find that one.
The unfortunate part was that I had to spend most of the time explaining the point of view that I have, because no one's ever heard of it. So I can't just go, "Oh, Christian," and you already understand what that means.
Mm.
So I had to hog the floor a lot, and he was very cordial. He was very nice to me in that I had to do that.
Yeah, and Reese, no, I'm not saying that polytheism is okay. I find it more acceptable. I definitely don't see polytheists going out trying to influence society. I think they just do their own thing. I get along with polytheists a lot better than I get along with most Christians. And I think it's because I used to be somewhat polytheist. I was a Native American spiritualist. I believed in Wakantanka, but we also believed in our ancestors, and our specific ancestors would watch over us and guide us. And I believed in spirit animals and all that stuff. So I think it allows me to relate to polytheists probably better than most atheists that's never experienced polytheism, but I don't. Yeah, I think it is okay, actually, if I think about it. My problem isn't with the religions themselves, but what the religions produce. And I don't see polytheists talking about killing gay people.
Yeah, right.
So
right.
My problem with religion is the hatred. I find it all silly, and I'm very clear about that. But oh yeah, sweet. Darth Dawkins is here with his insults. Darth Dawkins, instead of slinging insults, email me and schedule me a time to talk one-on-one. I'm going to try not to cuss you out next time. Let's do that. But I'm going to get off of here, guys. It is just about 5:30. So yes, Richard, in a half an hour, I'll send you the link with the message.
That would be great, bro. I'd love to sit and listen in.
Well, man, I appreciate this conversation. It was interesting. I got to talk about stuff that I don't get to talk about with most Christians. I really liked your questions at the end. I think we need to have
Let's do a whole thing on that.
Yeah, the next conversation you can just ask me questions and I'll answer.
That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. That'd be a lot of fun.
Be
Thank you so much for letting me on your channel. I really appreciate it. And again, congratulations. And I didn't say this to you particularly, but I would say to you, congratulations for leaving behind things that did not comport with your reality, did not make sense in your morality. So congratulations to you for being steadfast and steady. I really admire that.
Thank you, Richard. And I definitely think I've made a new friend, and you're more than welcome to come on my channel anytime you want to.
Rockin', bro. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Goodbye, everybody.
Yep. See you guys later.